What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the stream. Welcome back to EOS Phoenix channel. Thanks for tuning in today on my vid here. So if you like the content, consider hitting the like button if you haven't already, and consider subscribing to this channel. So today's video, give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to turn this down. Got some music playing in the background. Today's video is actually going to be about my trip to DC. So as some of you guys know, I decided to go to DC kind of at the last minute, and it wasn't really planned. I didn't know I was actually going to have an opportunity to get into the B1 June event. So I want to just tell you guys my experience going there, what I thought was awesome, what I thought of the presentation, and where I think we're going. So with that said and out of the way, first and foremost, recap of DC overall. One of the things I learned from going to DC, and it's something I've kind of always known anyway, but one of the things is, you know, the importance of showing up. And so I went to DC not exactly knowing if I would actually get into the Block 1 event. I had only planned on actually going to the Everything EOS event because that's all I had tickets for. So I ended up going to actually buying the ticket to get to DC, which, because I had booked it with like probably only 2 weeks left until the event, there wasn't a lot of tickets to even get there. So to make the long story short, and some of you guys who watched my my previous video in DC know, I had to do like a Frontier Airlines special. So I ended up taking a flight from Phoenix to Denver and then staying the night in Denver, and then from Denver going into DC, because there wasn't an actual direct flight from Phoenix that went to DC that was actually affordable. It was my first time flying Frontier, and boy oh boy was it an adventure. I mean, it wasn't the worst thing in the world, but definitely a different experience than like flying American or Delta. And me being a tall guy, I mean, some of you guys have met me. I'm like 6'4", so the seat distance was very challenging. But I wanted to go, and I felt it was important to show up to the event. So I went. So when I got to the event, actually when I landed, it was around 5. And I figured, I wasn't sure if I was actually going to make it to the event on time for the Everything EOS event, which was on Friday. I flew in at 5, didn't want to take an Uber, was just doing this super low budget. So I ended up figuring out how to take the rail into like the DC area where the events and everything was going to be at. So I ended up finding out how to do it. People were nice enough in DC to actually help me because I didn't know how to even pay for the rail or anything like that, or figure out how to transfer, and there was a transfer involved. But once all that was settled, actually the DC I guess transportation system is actually pretty good. It, you know, gets you where you need to go to. So I was able to get to where I need to go to, put my bags down, and then I scooted in actually to the event itself, the event that Everything EOS had hosted. So I got there thinking I was probably going to be kind of late. But Enrique says he put in a good word for me to get in. Yeah, thanks. I also saw that Brendan, and I want to go to that story, but Brendan actually stopped by at the event, and anybody who had one of those bands supposedly was able to get in as well, which was pretty cool. So again, not knowing about getting in, I still decided to go, which was kind of ballsy, I think. But it just, in my mind, it just goes to the importance of showing up regardless for things that you believe in. So anyway, we got to the event. Enrique was there. Shout out to Enrique. A host of other people were there. Obviously, Rob was there. Zach was there. We had the Liquid DAPP guys. We had the Equilibrium guys. We had like Ann Taylor and Stella and Pierce and Crystal Rose, right? So there are all these, like, the who's who of basically EOS was at this event. I would say there was probably about a couple, maybe 200 or 300 on this deck upstairs at this bar, or this restaurant bar kind of thing. So that was really cool. It was fun to interact with people. We had people there that didn't even know about EOS. That was like their first day coming to any EOS event, and it was funny because it's like they couldn't have picked a better event to go to. I mean, because everybody was there. So they walked in thinking like this was just some average event that they saw on Meetup because they were local to DC, and they ended up figuring out like, oh crap, this is actually like a major event for this project, and they ended up finding a little bit more out about EOS, IO, EOS in general, and some of the exciting DApps that are getting announced. And also they found out about V1 June, which was pretty cool. So I know of at least like 2 people at that event that had no idea about EOS, that found their way in there and eventually ended up in the V1 June event, which was really awesome to see. So made a lot of friends out there, got to chat with so many notable people. Fred from EOS Links, for example, was at the event talking about some of the exciting things he's bringing on his wallet. And just people from all over the globe. It was really interesting. You know, you had people, again, local to DC. I myself, as I mentioned, obviously flew out from Phoenix. But you had people coming from New York, from China, from Korea. So it was really special, I think, in my mind, just to see this entire community come together and to have a forum like that, because it's not often you see that. Like here in Phoenix, I'll be happy if I get one person to attend my event, you know. But it's nice to see like an overflow of people at some event, and just have that community and that awareness of the technology. So that was my first lesson at the event is, you know, the importance of showing up. Like I said, I didn't have tickets officially, allegedly, to the event. And shout out to the Everything EOS team, Mark Woods in particular, handing out those bands, and you know, along with others, putting a good word in for people to allow them to get into the event. And so I just want to kind of go over the style and vibe of DC. I kind of mentioned this in my other video, but you know, the style and vibe of DC, it's very much like people dress up there, you know, and the style is a lot different than on the West Coast. I think like on the West Coast, it's relaxed and chill, and it's also because of the technology culture, I think, on the West Coast. But in DC, what I notice is like people like to come in suits and nice shoes, and even on the rail lines, you know what I'm saying? They come decked out, you know, and even ladies come looking nice. So it's just a different contrast, and I think what I'm used to out here. Not to say out here is bad, but it's just a little bit different. So I thought that was interesting. Definitely more conversations as well, and just the vibe was a little bit more intellectual, which was just something different. I don't know if it vibes with you or not, but that's the style out there if you were wondering. So, and the other thing is, DC had so many museums. I was just surprised with, I mean, I knew they had a lot of museums, but granted, I didn't know a lot of them were free. So when I went out there after doing the Everything EOS event, I woke up very early the next day, went for a run all around, saw all the monuments, ran around all that thing, and then I actually scooted around and went to the different museums. And if you guys haven't done that, I recommend definitely checking out DC. It has a lot to offer. A lot of the Smithsonian museums, enjoyable. You could spend probably several days doing that. I kind of picked strategically where I wanted to go and just decided to attend those, because I think if you just do too many, you're going to exhaust yourself. And there were other types of, obviously, other things to do there. So you don't want to exhaust yourself by trying to do everything. So, what's up, Zane? Zane, what up? It's funny because on my way back to Phoenix via Denver, actually, I think I was on the same flight as Zane and Ash. So, shout out to those guys, and I want to thank them for actually handing out. I think they were the guys that handed this out, but the mugs for the event at the Everything EOS event, they were handing out. So I actually got one of those. I was gonna bring it with me. I'm actually at a cafe right now doing actually coding. So after I'm done doing this video, I'm jumping right into the Everything EOS development series. I'm on like series 30 right now, so I am definitely raising my bars and definitely acquiring the knowledge to hopefully add some value and build something useful. So learning about like tables and permissions and the login, require authentications for those that are doing it, and now getting into the front end stuff. So it's fun to learn. I enjoy doing it. Like I said, I'm an engineer. I'm electrical by trade, so I have done programming before, but it's not something I do every day. So this is just, it's nice to just get back into it. So Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are my programming days, and so I'm trying to catch up to other people, and definitely show what the gang can build. Hopefully, we can develop arguably one of the largest development communities in EOS that is kind of bootstrapped from the ground up. That's what I'm hoping to do. So I think I was allegedly the first to be on that Everything EOS development series from the gang that showed up, signed up. I've heard of others also signing up now. So I think we have like a couple people now that are getting into that stuff, which is cool to see. And eventually maybe we can all band together and build something really nice. I've heard of some rumors of a hackathon coming up maybe, or a longer hackathon. So it'd be interesting to see, which teams are the most innovative and who can provide the most value once the playing field is leveled with the understanding of how to create and build the technology. And so that seems to be the biggest hurdle with this stuff is just understanding maybe even how to code and how to develop a decent front end, right, to express your ideas. I think once that hurdle is overcome, it really starts to change the potential opportunities, and not only opportunities for the individual, but opportunities for the community, because people who wouldn't normally be able to develop solutions are then able to, and you might get some really interesting use cases or business models from that, because they're often maybe the people that didn't know how to build the technology are some of the best people that have some of the best ideas, because they've dealt with a lot of things just like everybody else has, right? So that's what is exciting to me. So like I mentioned, yeah, it's just so many people at the event. And I mentioned Mark was nice enough to hand out the bands for the event. So it's funny, during the event later on, Brendan Bloomer ends up stopping by the event for the Everything EOS event. And I, at least personally, wasn't expecting this. It was kind of a surprise to see someone like him at the event. He ends up coming to everybody's table, or most people's tables. So we had like a little posse going on. I mean, Enrique was doing his thing. He was going around and talking to everybody. I was kind of chilled up, posted at a couple different tables, and just as people would come by, I would start talking to them and just introducing myself and seeing how they got involved and what their perspective is on this technology. And so we had like, I think, a decent amount of people around chatting, and all of a sudden, just randomly, you have Brendan Bloomer stop by, and he actually asked, so where's everybody from? And he asked a couple questions, and so there was this nice conversation going on, and it was just very unique, because how often can someone say that someone who's running a multi-billion-dollar company takes the time to talk to arguably some homies, right? I mean, it doesn't happen every day. So I thought that was pretty unique, and I really appreciate Brennan for stopping by the table and just interacting with everybody and exchanging some jokes, right? So it was just really cool to see. And then he made a speech and talked about how excited he was to see the turnout for the community, and the fact that everybody with that band on their hand would actually get into the event. So that was pretty neat to see. And I think there were some other people from B1 there, but Brendan was definitely the one that made an impression because of his ability to just go out and approach people at the event and not waiting for people to go to him, And so I thought that was really interesting as well, because usually it's the other way around, you have people going to meet a CTO or CEO or anybody in the upper levels of a company, but this guy was actually going around and talking to people. So shout out to you, Brennan, if you're listening to this video, or if you do listen to it, and keep up the good work, because I thought that was an awesome style and appreciated by the community. So awesome event there. And then, you know, one of the other things about DC was the heat. So it was about 80 degrees and kind of muggy. So I'm glad I brought shorts and tank top. So I was definitely rocking that, with the exception of like the actual official event. But running around was comparable, I think, to Phoenix in some ways. So we got to the day of the event, June 1st, and this was obviously the most exciting event was the Scoot 1 June. One of the most exciting events was Scoot 1 June. So picture this in your head, and there's a lot of videos on this on Twitter, but you got about like 40 or 50 nerds, like 40 or 50 hardcore, you know, crypto guys decked out in EOS gear on these scooters, okay? So I woke up early and started you know, trying to find a scooter. That was the story too. So I was trying to find a scooter, and so the mapping system, because Zach had warned us to make sure I get a scooter that has enough of the battery power. So I'm trying to kidnap a scooter early in the day so I can bring it and hide it around my hotel and lock it down so I could use it later in the day. So I'm using the map, and it's taking me like, it didn't seem like a far ways from my hotel, and it wasn't. It was probably, you know, 2 miles, which for me, I love walking around. Anybody who has seen me at the other events, like the San Francisco events or the hackathon events, I definitely just love walking around the city and just taking in the city and talking to people. So definitely not afraid of, you know, definitely from LA, I'm used to walking around and just using transportation. So anyway, it takes me though like 2 or 3 miles from my hotel, and it definitely changed quick. I'll say that. So my hotel was, you know, it was more in the area where all these condos and I guess skyscrapers are. And I crossed the freeway over, and it takes me to like this neighborhood where there's like the surveillance and sirens that are lit sirens that are spinning, and lights, and it just didn't seem like a very, I don't know how I it was just a little semi-shady, and there was some, I don't know, I probably just didn't look the part either, so I was kind of being cautious, but I ended up getting a scooter there and then taking it through back to my hotel. So when I got the scooter and got all that settled down, Enrique says the next B1 June will be a skydive 1 June. I'm all for that. I'm definitely showing up for that. And he also says that allegedly EOS event in Brazil in October. So, hey, do you have a link you can share with the community on that? Or is that just Mandela in effect? So the June 1 event, like I said, I brought the scooter, went to the Capitol building, and I was trying to find this group, right? This gang, this Scoot gang. And there was, like I said, I knew there was going to be around 30 or 40 people all posted up. But it ends up being that I couldn't find them initially. So I was like, maybe they just left already, because it was like 5 minutes to where I should have been there. And so then I ended up figuring out that they were actually on the other side of the building, because it's like the building's obviously very huge, and me not being from there, both sides look like the main area where you'd meet. And so I went to the other side and finally found them. And I think there were some other people trying to find them. And on my way up there, they had left. I guess they had given up or something. They had like started there and then they left and they bounced out. But I went around and obviously found the Scoot gang. So that was pretty fun. So we get going to the event. It's a couple miles from the Capitol to the DC Armory, which is where the event was held. And my scooter, actually my bird, starts to stall, and so it actually shuts off for a little bit. But I'm able to get it reset and join the crowd. So anybody who's interested in that, seeing the videos, definitely check out Twitter. If you type in like Scoot 1 June EOS, or go to Enrique's Twitter page or his updates. I think he has some content posted that shows the gang like actually scooting in, and then actually like scooting into the event, where you see like just a line of these people with scooters parking and just kind of making a statement, I guess. And it was kind of an interesting, I guess, moment there, because here in you can picture this. The sun is beaming. You have the DC Armory, and then you have this road, which isn't very crowded with cars, but you see these like dozens of scooters flying in. It's just like like a biker gang, and everybody's like making a bunch of noise, and so people are looking around like, what the heck is this? Like, what is this whole, like, what is this commotion? Like, what are these people doing? And so, like, you have Enrique and this crowd, right, that's yelling out like "Scoot 1 June," and like they're like trying to figure out like, what is this? And so when we actually get to the event, it's a contrast, because you have, in my mind, the hardcore crypto holders, EOS community, this hardcore bunch, this scoot gang, if you will. And then you have another group that is like crypto holders and hardcore nerds. But you also have like the well-to-dos, I'd say. And so these people were kind of like, what the heck is going on? Like, they were looking at us like, I don't think they knew about the scoot gang. And so, they were in their suits, and they were VIP'd in, or they rode in with their security personnel. So it's just a very interesting time, because you have like this mix of people at this event. You have people that came in their scooters and shorts and kind of with their bags, and then you have like the VC crowd, tech bros, and then you have the crypto community as well that didn't participate in Scoot. But it was dope to make that impression. And I think next year, if we do it, it's just going to grow that much larger, because I think we can scoot at the next one hopefully as well. So while I was out there, it took a while. I mean, there was a huge line outside. You could imagine at this event the who's who of EOS, and so I get to talking with people like Stella, people like Ann Taylor, I think formerly affiliated with EOS Tribe, and it was just really nice to get perspective from people on the anticipation building up. So at this point, obviously we're not in the event. There's been a lot of rumors about what EOS was going to, or what B1 was going to announce, right? And so people are suspecting scalability for Bitcoin. People have in the bag the social media apps getting announced, and what that could be. Maybe a partnership with Facebook, they were saying, right? So everybody was speculating on these things. And then we actually get in the event. And so just picture this, the event was, and I don't know if Enrique's done his recap on this, but I would say that this event was really the design. First of all, when you walk in, the impression that B1 sent was what I would call Apple-like. And what I mean by that is the event was so sleek, the lighting, the floors, everything about the event, the way that the people ushered everybody in, and just it built up a lot of intrigue, even in terms of the space that this event took place in. Because when you go in, you can't see the whole thing. You're kind of going through this tunnel almost, and it's all lit up and done in some very modern and cool colors. And when you walk in and you register, okay, and you tell them your name, and they're getting you in, and you get your badge. It was, yeah, a 5-star treatment. It was like champagne, as Zane said. It was like champagne and like appetizers. And I was so into the tech, like I wasn't like focused on that. So I just kind of like, it wasn't until actually after the presentations that I tried that stuff out. Because when I first walked in, I was like, holy crap, there's like all these screens of information and updates on what B1 has been working on. And so I was just amazed, first of all, even before getting to this main area where everybody was convened, that they had like this tunnel. And I was just in awe, because I love like art and lighting and music. And so I was just kind of taking this in. And then I was with this other crowd. And then they handed out these Bose headphones, which is cool. And I was like, what are these for? So they handed out like some Bose, like some legit Bose noise canceling headphones, which was super fancy, I thought. And so I was like wondering, what are these for? But it ends up turning out that they're for interacting with the screens they had on display in this area where the community was to discuss things and meet each other. So that turned out to be, I thought, a pretty neat way to kind of promote the things they've been working on. I was so busy talking to other people, I didn't actually get to enjoy the Bose headphones while I was actually at the event. I was almost suspecting that they were going to they were going to use. I thought for a while they were going to use the Bose headphones to like present their content, so no one could actually like record it and then stream it. But that was wrong. I was just going in hyper engineering mode where I was like suspecting what this technology was being used for. But anyway, I'm like Zane. I agree with you, Zane. I think this gift from B1 was probably the best thing I've received in a long time, because like Enrique and Zane, I've been using this almost every day, and I use it almost as a tool so I can stay focused on development. Because you can imagine, like for me, like I don't like grinding 100% at home on this stuff. I like to have divisions in where I sleep and where I eat my food and where I work. So I usually go to cafes in Phoenix. Like right now I'm in Scottsdale, a pretty nice area. So I came here to do some work. And you know, there's ambient noise and music and distractions, but putting these on, not to say, you know, I'm not paid by B1 or Bose, but I could say like these are legit. Like these totally get you focused in, and productivity's like, yeah, a lot more improved with something like that. And the sound is super crisp. So thanks, shout out to B1 for an awesome gift and an awesome tool at the event. And I think everybody would agree that they're finding a lot of benefit, not only at the event, but even as they're developing content or helping the community in some way. So obviously I'm all decked out today, guys, in my my gold chain today. So I brought that out, and I'm kind of rocking like this crazy shirt I designed actually. So yeah, you know, you gotta, I think when you're investing in cryptos in general, one is showing up. Two is obviously being a unique beast, and what I mean by that is B1 and EOS in particular for us is not very popular right now, especially in other cities beyond San Francisco and LA. So I mean, there's like probably less than a handful in Phoenix that are even aware of this stuff, and I love that. You know, I think it's very special, and I told a lot of people, in fact, at in DC, that something like that event that we went to, like the Everything EOS event for this year, may arguably be the very last event associated with like a B1 event that is not large, like not mainstream, where you're like having trouble getting in. You know, it's like it was large, but it was still manageable. I think the next event will just be out of control. So Rezi mentions here, EOS is totally ran by bots. I would say we got to separate. So I see what you're saying. So Rezi's point is, you know, there was this news feed that came out that mentioned that after investigation, a lot of these DAPPs are being run by bots. Now, I think that's very different than the EOS IO technology or EOS as a mainnet. I don't think those are being run by bots, because there's a risk in the tokens for that. But I think there are bots in play for a lot of DAPPs that are looking to gain recognition in the ecosystem. And I think as you see solutions we're going to discuss today start to be deployed, you're going to see that change dramatically. Enrique the Mandela is saying that he still thinks Facebook might be building on EOSIO. I originally thought that, but you know, after seeing some of Dan's comments, I think that's less likely, because Dan made some statements that I would think if someone was working with a company like Facebook, they wouldn't make. Unless Dan's just like me and he just like, because some engineers are like that, and they just say what's on their mind and they don't give a you know what. And maybe Dan's like that. And if he is, and it turns out that Facebook is building on EOSIO, I respect Dan even more, because it just shows he has a lot of balls. But most people are not like that. And I would think that B1's corporate would probably not let him make those statements. I know usually, even at my previous job, I get in hot water for doing those things. So anyway, Enrique says he allegedly found this newly released video of Brock talking about his connections with Facebook. I don't doubt it, but all I'm saying is, we'll have to see how that transpires. I also don't think it would make great strategic sense for a company like Facebook to partner with a company like B1 or use EOSIO, because EOSIO's voice project, which we're going to talk about, would be in direct competition with a project like Facebook. So I think logically and from a business sense perspective, that's where I think that's a little less likely because of that competition and the fact that the value proposition that something like voice is going to provide users is, in my opinion, much more superior than what anything Facebook can put out, because their trust is tarnished. It's in the garbage can. Unless you talk about a certain age demographic, which is the older demographic. Yeah, Facebook may still have those people, but in my opinion, they're destroyed. They've already destroyed themselves. And the only reason why people use them still is because you haven't seen another platform gain that network effect. But that's going to change very dramatically here, in my opinion, within the next couple years. And voice as a technology for social networking is only one demonstration of what voice actually is. And so that's another thing I want to talk about today, because I admittedly, like many of the people who went to the event, initially was a little disappointed, or not disappointed, a little salty, because I had my thoughts on what would be announced at this event. And so it took probably me sleeping on, it took like a night sleeping on the event and waking up and like going for a run and thinking about what was shared and what does this mean, and digesting some of the information that I, viewed on the screens to understand like what B1 was actually saying they were gonna do. Yeah, I was initially a little I wouldn't say salty, but I wanted to know, to know more about voice. Like I left, as Dan and Brandon were presenting, towards the end I was like, it's like a kid, or it's like going to a restaurant and getting an appetizer, and you're thinking that you're going to get this main course menu, right? Or main course entree. And so I kind of left thinking like, this is great. This was like awesome through the event. And then towards the end, I was like kind of wanting to learn, to know more about what voice was. And there was some element of it, because I'm maybe a little bit more nerdy, and I seek that information. That was like, I was like, oh, it's shorter than I would have wanted, and it's less details than I would have wanted, because I'm just a very detail-oriented guy. But after I thought about it and kind of brought back to my senses, learning that like the average Joe is not like me. It's not, they don't want the details. You don't want to overwhelm them with engineering details and wizardry. Okay, in fact, that's going to turn them off. And so when I kind of took a step back and realized that, I started to kind of rethink and align myself with what Zane is saying, and that it really surpassed my expectations upon reflection, because that's what it did for me. But initially, and I'm just being honest here, because that's the person I am. I want to always be honest with you guys. At the event itself, if you ask anybody who was talking to me after the event, immediately after, I was kind of like, oh, I wanted to, I didn't think there was enough details there. But after thinking about it more, I realized that the audience wasn't us. The audience for what Brandon and Dan and Coinbase announced, it wasn't intended for the people currently, in the weeds within this community. It wasn't for that. So going into the details would have overwhelmed new users who are going to be using voice, or who are going to be using Coinbase, or anybody like that, So that's what it comes down to. I think it was a strategic decision, and upon reflection of it, I think it was actually a very good decision. I also think that the lack of details, and I think some are going to laugh about this, but I think B1 was very strategic in releasing the information they did and the way they did. Because, and there are two reasons for that, I think, after pondering it more. One thing is, you got a lot of people like Tron, okay? And say what you want about Tron, say what you want about a lot of these projects, but one thing is, they're not exactly innovators, okay? I'll give Justin Sun credit in that he's a genius marketer. But in terms of innovation, right now in the space, outside of EOS, I don't think there's better innovators in the space. There's not better engineers, there's not better communities, there's not better thinkers, there's not better entrepreneurs. I know that because I see the people that are involved in this space, and I have a tremendous respect for them. And I look at what Ethereum is doing, or what they did, because I was involved in that community. Look at what Tron's doing, and I don't think it's there. I think they're, in terms of Tron, they're probably the best at copying innovations, and they're probably the fastest to market. They're less risk. They're less concerned with risk from a regulatory standpoint. If you look at B1 and EOS, there's probably more engineers involved in that. There's definitely the technology behind it. And I'm starting to also see more diversity in something like an EOS versus a Tron versus a Bitcoin, for example, which is nice to see. And so with that, I think you're going to get more strength long term. But what I'm saying is, if B1 would have announced all those details at this event and just spilled all the beans without having regulatory clarity in all the jurisdictions they're looking to target with their product, that would have been like an assassination attempt on themselves. Because what you would have had actually is a Coinbase Binance moment, where someone like a Binance for blockchains, which would be a Tron, would take all the ideas that B1 has basically put together and run with it and take away market share from EOS. So I think that by B1 gaining first, I think what their strategy right now, if I had to guess, is gaining the firm regulatory standing in most of the countries they want to target for their product, and then formally releasing the details, white paper, marketing, etc. That's the way you execute as a business. You don't execute as a business by creating a hype machine. So, and upon reflection of that, I was like, good move, B1. But it took a long time for me to appreciate that. And at the event, I was like a little bit like, it's kind of like what Enrique said. I was like, these people flew from all over the country or all over the world for that matter. And, it would have been nice to see a little bit more. But I think there's something to that. And let's not forget about all the investments made outside of voice, all the things I know about, from the hackathons and the expo events. There's a lot more funding going on with other projects, and there's likely to be an event here. I'm predicting, you're hearing it here first, within 2019, for B1's partners to announce that. So there's kind of like this first phase for B1, but I think you'll also see subsequent event releases for a lot of these projects that are VC funded. Resi asked the question, so why not ask for forgiveness instead of permission? My very succinct response to you would say, seek the kick guys or gals, that project, okay? B1 is running now $1 billion operation. They have, and they're 2 years into this thing. So they just have to be very strategic, because if they piss off the wrong people or piss off the regulators, the whole thing gets shut down. And so the risk of doing that versus the rewards, given that there's nobody else in the space that even has, in my opinion, competitive solutions or competitive products, B1 has the luxury of waiting for the regulatory clarity And if they're able to gain that, they actually are far above the competition, because none of these other guys are even thinking about this stuff. None of them are building this into their product from the beginning. And so that's all I'm going to say about that. It's like you have to be aware of what's going on, because they're not stupid about any of that stuff. And the fact that Facebook is, allegedly selling these nodes for $10 million, 100 nodes, logically, they're illogical about it, if you ask me. And I'm going to tell you why. It's like those BPs who are putting up, those nodes who are putting up $10 million to be a part of this network are gonna expect to get paid. Okay, they're gonna expect to get paid money. They're not doing it for free, and so you have to wonder what that business model is going to be like. The way voice is structured, it's a different value proposition, and it's on the EOS mainnet. So you don't have the alignment of incentives with Facebook's coin, whatever the fuck they're doing. So that's why someone like myself is laughing at something like Facebook. I think it's good for the ecosystem, but I can't take them seriously. And I don't think they're a competitor to what B1 is building, in my opinion. Rezi asks, comply with the warden while digging the escape tunnel. I think it's something like that, but you have to be aware of the lack of education in the space, and you have to be aware of the lack of regulatory clarity in the space. So I'll give you an example. Even here locally, I can't even find, there's probably not even one VC person. There's probably not even a local legit VC company that even understands what EOS is, let alone what Bitcoin or blockchain is, okay? And a lot of the people who even hold the coins here, and it's no disrespect to them. Listen, I help everybody in Phoenix. Anybody who has EOS and who wants to know about it, come by. I'm always around. Weekends I show up. You know what I'm saying? You just have to let me know when and where. But many of them come from the Bitcoin thinking, which is just hodl and store coins in a wallet. And a lot of them are so scared to even use the technology. So that's where we're at. We're super early in the space is all I'm trying to tell you guys. And it's easy to say, block one should have did this or block one should have done that. But what you have to realize is the current population of people who are even using EOS or even Bitcoin for that matter is less than 1% of the population. And what block one is going after is not the 1%. It's not the 1% of all crypto users today. It's the entire population of the globe that is being disenfranchised by these entrenched institutions. And so there's a much greater opportunity if they go through these steps. And voice as a technology is a lot more than what they made it out to be. And so I'm hoping I can get to that, because I did take some notes on that I want to share with you guys about voice. So, but as you guys have questions, definitely add them in the chat. And I also want to just do a shout out to all the gang, Freedom Proxy, Zane and Ash, as I mentioned, Crypto Feez, who's actually I think flying, or he might have left LA. He was doing a commercial shoot. So happy to hear that Crypto Feez is doing some big things. He's moving up, and hope to see a sneak peek of his commercial. So that sounds very exciting. LA is a really interesting place. Obviously, you guys know, often I rock the LA jerseys and attire because I'm from LA. I'm actually from Venice. So LA is just, there's never a dull moment in LA. So you can go to Venice, you can go here, there. You can do music, you can do videos, you can do acting, you can do modeling. And those are all things that, I enjoyed while I was in LA. Those are all things as a younger person, a young adult, I would say, I did. I enjoyed going into the movie space, doing commercials, doing modeling. Those are all things that are in LA that you can't necessarily find in other cities and places. So I would say Crypto Feez, take advantage of it, and hopefully, I hope you had a great time, and hopefully you're out there again. And maybe when you're out there again, I'll be out there, and we can enjoy it with other peeps as well. So EOS DAPP Star says, "Are you in the EOS radio chat?" I am. I'm not, or I might be actually. I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to check that out. Resi says, "Global Coin reminds me of the when Blockbuster tried copy Netflix, but it was too late." Exactly. Yeah, it's just the business model and the alignment of incentives isn't there. So it just seems like they're saying, slap blockchain on it, and we'll call it good. And that's. I feel bad for the investors who are going to take that risk, because I would think the value proposition between investing in a platform that'll host multiple communities is a lot better than gambling $10 million into one community. You see how that's illogical, guys? That's just way too much of a bet. That's really ballsy. That's more ballsy than most people realize. I'd like to see who actually is looking to do that. It just doesn't make sense at all. So B1 June event, this whole narrative by Brennan and Dan, I think this tag team at the event worked really well. Brennan did a very good job, I thought, of telling the story of, I think the erosion of trust is really what it comes down to. Whether it's the financial system, it's the social network systems that we have today. Brennan did a good job of telling that story of why people should care about this, and ultimately what they're looking to do with voice in terms of rewarding users for content and participation. Now, if you think about it, where we are right now, I mentioned, again, EOS is way less than 1%. Cryptos are definitely less than 1%. Where it looked like Brendan was going with this narrative, and Dan, this whole event was targeted on addressing the adoption issues. And so what I mean by that is, if you think about the adoption hurdles for something like EOS today, we're going to talk about a couple things, right? Security is a big one. Security for EOS is still a big one, despite the amazing wallets we have and the owner and active keys we have, and the education. You've got guys like me, guys like Zane, Rezi, you have Crypto Feez, you have Enrique. So you have regional people who are able to help out other people if they get in trouble, or if they need help. If they're around here, I help them out. You know what I'm saying? If they have trouble with the wallets, or they need to get it set up. There are people around who hopefully are developing a good reputation, and so that word spreads, and so you get this community building. But the problem with that is, it's an average person is probably not even going to try to find a crypto fee. It's not going to try to find an EOS authority. They don't even know these people exist. You know what I'm saying? So I have people even contacting me now, just recently, a couple people, that they are still looking to claim their EOS tokens or figure out a way to put them on a ledger so they're more secure. And so I've helped a lot of those people. But all I'm saying is people are still at that level, okay? And these are not your average people. These are people who are more technology forward-thinking people that were at least able to do some steps to have a seat at the table in the EOS ecosystem. Now, do you think that your sister or your mom or your brother, or not to play genders here, but I'm just saying, someone who's not into this stuff, are they going to take the time? Are they going to take half a day or 3 hours or a couple hours to get set up on this stuff? They're not. Okay, I can tell you they're not. And so I think the presentation was geared towards addressing a lot of those issues. If you look at something like Coinbase, that reduces the hurdle in terms of how someone acquires EOS as an asset, okay, for an average Joe. That's what it comes down to. People don't want to go to some overseas exchange that they've never heard of. They're not willing to do that. The vast majority of people, if they use Coinbase, especially in the United States, and I should mention that, but most of them maybe have a Coinbase account, maybe they have a Robinhood, and that's about it. The average person, I'm saying. And that's asking a lot for them, okay? So having that partnership was very key in terms of at least giving people an opportunity to get a seat at the table. Doesn't mean they'll take it immediately till it's probably obvious, but very similar to what we saw with Ethereum, you're seeing that with EOS. And that's just one thing that was announced. The other thing you saw that was announced was the custodian services. And this is one that I think wasn't wasn't, how do I say it? I didn't give it the appreciation, okay? When I went to the event and I heard about it, I wasn't thinking of what this actually means for the ecosystem. And so upon thinking about it more, what it does mean is you have a lot of institutions, their job is to manage money for their clients. Their clients range from pensions to 401ks to a lot of things, right? Eventually, where it's going to move is a lot of these institutions are going to want exposure to cryptos, right, as a whole. They're going to need exposure to cryptos because that's where the value system of social networks and money exchange is going. And EOS is in that asset class. EOS is in that basket, okay? It's going to be an integral part of it. We know that. And so you can't really formally allow those systems to transition without having custodian products and services. Having that partnership announced, again, gives them an opportunity to do that, which was another hurdle for transitioning even EOS into this upper tier of an asset class. So many people didn't realize that. Do I think a lot of VCs and these institutions have acted? I don't think so, but again, they're laying out the red carpet for them, right? That's what's going on, guys. They're laying out this red carpet, and so at least it's there so that when it is obvious what they need to do, they'll be able to do it. So think about that for a second. The other thing is you have a lot of partnerships in EOS. Think about this. You have a lot of partnerships in EOS like that may have not been announced yet. Or think about people who want to play in the voice space. They're going to need custodian solutions. I'm not talking about you and I. I'm talking about American Express. I'm talking about Nike. I'm talking about large companies that want to, for example, advertise on voice, right? One of the pairs to voice will be EOS. There's no, I guess it should be obvious to you guys what's going on. Basically, these people will want to have a stake in the network. They'll want to have a voice in the network, not only in the voice network, but as EOS starts to become more mainstream, I think they'll want to have stake in the EOS mainnet to determine and shape the evolution of the network. And you may even see them arguably and allegedly, and I know some people are not going to like this, but this is the fact. You may start to see what a lot of people predicted at the beginning of the launch. And what I mean by that, and I think Zane was probably around for this, and some others were as well, but I remember back in the day, like before the launch, I'm talking about like when there were probably only 20 or 25 BPs that were working together, you know, and testing code. What a lot of people predicted actually was that there were a lot of BPs in the shadows who were not announcing themselves, that were established companies like a Google, a Facebook, a lot of companies, a lot of financial institutions perhaps. And so you might actually see an attempted run for some of these to run as a BP. You could see that, right? Because it is, in this role, it's very similar to the way banking is today. And so it makes a natural, I guess it makes a natural transition for some of these legacy institutions to participate in. Now, formally, they weren't really able to easily do that because there was no custodian solution. There was a lot of risk. There was a lot of risk in doing it. But in having this custodian solution, it provides them an opportunity to acquire the EOS tokens and maybe gain enough influence to become some kind of a block producer or even build something on the EOS ecosystem. So it's not only, I guess what I'm trying to tell you guys is the custodian solution should not only be thought of as something for investment, it's something that could be thought of as a way for large companies to build on EOS that need a secure way to hold their resources, okay, without getting jacked. Because even some of the big companies in crypto get their shit jacked. And up to now, besides something like Coinbase and maybe one or two others, there's not a lot of solutions that allow them to do that. So that was game changing if you think about it. Not only from investment, I'll say it again, for actually building. So we may not even know the extent of what's going to be built on EOS beyond what Block 1 is doing. That's all I want to say. There's a reason why all this is happening. There's a reason why custodian services are being offered for EOS, and it's not just investments. What's up, CryptoType? Shout out to CryptoType. If you guys are looking for awesome content beyond Crypto Feez and the EOS Apologist channel and many others such as Everything EOS, check out my brother, the CryptoType. He makes not weekly videos, but he makes, when he puts out videos, you definitely want to tune into them. I also think he's working on some gaming, some type of a gaming app. So we're building up the Gang development team, or the Gang dev gang. It's a kind of a sub gang within the Gang community. So I'm excited to hear about that. That people are now starting to innovate, and we're starting to expand our horizons. We started out as this community that was enthusiastic about EOS, and now we're evolving to not only be enthusiasts but value creators, I think, which is neat to see. So what do you guys think about that concept with the custodians? Do you guys see it in the same way I do, or do you guys think it's mainly geared towards investors? Because I actually think you'll see more of the builders use that, the big builders. But I want to get to another topic here, which is voice itself. So, I mentioned several times during this video chat that voice is so much more than a social networking, I guess, platform, if you will, that rewards users for participating in the network and also creating content, right? It is basically, if you think about it, Bitcoin was, I guess, new money 1.0, I guess you can call it. All right, that's what it was. Where we're going, though, is we're going from mining, which Bitcoin was, Bitcoin in terms of mining was energy expenditure, right? It took energy to mine coins, and there was a difficulty algorithm that started to change over time to make it harder, right? To basically prove out the work, right? For the value of the coin, so that it had some nature of being secure. And so where we're going, if you think about it, is we're still having that system as a proof of work in terms of its function of energy that can be measurable in terms of electricity, for example, and processing power. And we're transitioning to another system that's in parallel to that, which is mining for attention and mining for intelligence, right? And mining for content. And so if you think about it, it's actually not that much different than Cash 1.0, right? Bitcoin, but it's a different energy, or it's a different essence of it that is critical to human beings, which is communication. So instead of mining with the consumption of energy, what we're actually doing is we're mining attention. So as your content becomes more on point, if it becomes more valuable, if it inspires people, if it helps create more value in the community, okay, teaching maybe someone how to do something, or teaching them a different perspective on a topic, or teaching them anything, really, okay, if someone perceives it has value and it receives attention, it is a way to mine that attention in an immutable, transparent manner. And never before have you had that. You have some projects like the, what do you call that? You have some projects like the Brave browser and the basic attention token. But this is arguably something that goes beyond that, because it also involves and is probably the most critical, or what would you say, the most, I guess, controversial is the word I was using. It involves KYC of all the users. So this is a double-edged sword because it's radical transparency. Anybody who is using the voice network will know that the users are real, which means that you have a truth system in attention, because you can only, your time, your attention is a limited, finite, measurable element as a human being. And we know how many humans there are on the planet. And the amount of humans on the planet, it does increase, but it is a small inflation rate. If you think about it, if you think of humans, and I know people are like, "You're crazy, Phoenix," but if you think about humans, there's so many humans on the planet, and one thing we all have in common as human beings is the time we have on the earth, and the time we have in a day. And so attention is a commodity. Time is a commodity. Time is a form of a value. Okay, so this is not. I guess what I'm trying to say is it's not unreasonable to think that something like voice could be huge, because it addresses so many problems, not only in the current system we have, but also just naturally. It's a good measure of value, someone's time, because that's what work is. And attention is similar, okay? And in theory, you could use something like voice in the future to build attention systems that basically allow people to work on solving problems, which that's what work is. You know what I mean? That's what we do when we work. That's what we're supposed to do. Not everybody does that, but so voice has that potential to make the transition for humanity, I think, for revaluing attention. Oftentimes right now, we look at things like YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, and we participate in a lot of those social networking systems without getting any form of compensation, whether we're the value creators or someone who appreciates good content. And so this is going to redefine that relationship. But it also redefines the relationship for advertisers, because it provides them maybe a better means of targeting users, but doing it in a secure manner, and also in a manner which users get rewarded for actually viewing that content. And so, again, that's groundbreaking in my opinion. The crazy part about it is, as Zane said, full reputation, which is a double-edged sword. What do I mean by that? Well, if you're going to make a statement on something like voice, it's going to remain there, and it is affiliated with you as a human being, as a unique person on this planet, which is kind of bizarre it's amazing and scary at the same time, because we haven't had that in the past. Everything that we've had thus far is technically either arguable that it is you or it's not you, or it's immutable, meaning you can delete it and it changes. With something like voice, it's going to essentially, arguably, create a reputation system for everybody or anybody, and shape the perceived value of a community or a person. And so that's double-edged in a way, because on the one hand, if you put out great content and help a lot of people, your value, your perceived value would be huge, and you could actually earn an income just by participating in voice. On the other hand, because of the nature of how society is right now, we do know that there is a role for controversial articles to play in our society. Now, that comes with a cost. So it'll be interesting to see how we as users, how we gauge that risk. Because in speaking out about things, it'll come at an initial cost. Maybe on voice, or even within your society or community, to speak out against something that maybe you're not for or you are for. And that could shape dramatically how, as humans, that particular individual is viewed, right, later. So I guess what I'm getting at, and what's kind of scary, is the China social credit score system. And so that's what I think we need to be aware of and try to figure out solutions for how to provide the balance. What I mean by the balance is you have radical transparency, but you have opportunities to have engagement for controversial articles and controversial opinions. I think Dan's opinion thus far, though, is basically for people to put their money where their mouth is, and it won't always be trendy or it won't always be to the benefit of the user. But if they really believe in it, they still have to basically put their voice where they think it is needed. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that? I mean, do you see us as a society, as humans, evolving to the point where we get over the fear of voicing controversy or our opinions? Because that'll be the real test for voice. I think it'll be a tremendous success regardless. But what I'm wondering is, will it be able to get across that controversial, like having the ability to embrace controversy with somebody, and the fact that people can make mistakes over the course of their lifetime. So someone can make a statement or a viewpoint on something, and their viewpoint will change over time. But with voice and the blockchain works like a radio, and so those thoughts and those opinions and those articles are recorded for the history, right? As long as you're on this planet. So if you think about it, that's kind of scary. It's going to take humans to evolve and understand that we do make mistakes, and people can have opinions that change and opinions that we may not agree with, and those come with cost, but people can also evolve as well. So what I don't want to see, though, is for someone expressing an opinion, they're penalized like by a government, right? I think it's okay to for communities to obviously see people evolve, and I think that's an interesting part of being human, is that you change and you improve, hopefully, over time, right? As a human being, you try to help your fellow man, and you're going to make mistakes along the way. We all have. But what would be scary is if voice starts to be an onboarding for other systems, other surveillance systems, and then it restricts you from doing certain things. That's where it can kind of get scary. So I'm all for it. I'm all for the radical transparency, provided it's the community that is the enforcer on this stuff, not a centralized government that is going to start, taking people out for saying stuff. That's what we don't want. Or even agencies that do that, right? So that's the scary part. So that's what voice is at the surface. But what is it deeper than that? Well, if you think about it, guys, DeFi apps, right? Think about your Ubers, think about your Lyfts, think about your Airbnb, think about your insurance applications that we've all talked about. A lot of us who even participated in the hackathons, okay, and pitched to someone like Novogratz, we pitched ideas that required a layer of identity and a layer of assurance on who the participants are in the contract, who they were in the contract. Without something like voice, it's very difficult to build the types of applications I think we should build to allow for the liquidity of many different assets, real estate, the sharing economy, right, and the exchange of value in general. It's very hard to do that without having identity tied in, because you may not know who you're dealing with and if they're trustworthy. And it's probably a good thing for you to know if you can trust somebody before you get in a contract with them. I'll give you an example, okay? Say you wanted to rent a room or go rent a room on your vacation. Maybe you want to know who you're renting a room from so that you know if that person is trustworthy, at least on paper. It's a lot better than just not knowing anything about that person. Imagine you take that to the next step and you want to develop a real estate deal with a group of people. you want to know that they're trustworthy in some ways. And so identity is really the first step of that, provided it's not radically used by governments to take people out. You need a solution like that to know who you're dealing with and build those DeFi apps so that it ties into KYC, because there's no way that any government would allow a solution built like that without having that solution. So the other thing is you can build other blocks on top of it. So this identity layer is just the first building block for the Ubers, for the Airbnbs, but I think you could see it go a lot more than that, and I'm predicting that you will. I'm thinking that the voice platform as a social network is just the use, like it's just a way to demonstrate the use case. It'd be like Bitcoin. It'd be like how people thought about Bitcoin being a way to make money and send money from one point to another. But Bitcoin's a lot more than that. And so voice, from a content mining perspective and from an identity perspective, that's only looking at the surface. It's like scratching the surface. What you're going to see built on that is when the amazing part comes in. When you see those apps that we've all been talking about built on it, that's where you're going to see the aha and the Captain Obvious people flocking to EOS. It's going to take time to see that, but for people like myself, what I'm going to be looking to do is how to leverage the tools that maybe Block One puts out or other community members put out to build a DeFi type application here in Phoenix, and hopefully it scales beyond that, or hopefully join a team that is looking at doing those things, because that's where the opportunities are, right? I like the gambling dApps. I think they're cute, but for me, is gambling something that I think changes the world? I don't think so. And while I think it's fun to play with, I'm more into shaking things up. I want to reinvent the business models for a lot of things I see that are wrong in society, and so I have a lot of interesting ideas about that. Novogratz has his ideas about bringing real estate, I guess real estate on the blockchain and adding liquidity to real estate. I have my radical ideas about how to do that with real estate that I think tie into a different population segment. I'll just put it that way. I'm not about bringing liquidity to banks and institutions. I mean, if they want to use the product, that's fine. But I'm more into how do you solve a problem that we have right now with real estate, and how do you change the value proposition for renters, for example, right? And I think there's very interesting ways to do that, which are going to put maybe people who are in real estate right now that rent their properties for return on interest. It's going to change. It's going to change that relationship, I think, with some of these ideas we see, and you're going to see others like that too. So yeah, that's all I really wanted to say about the voice app on that. But if you also think about it, voice will be used for another purpose, and that's to onboard users into applications themselves with some assurances. So I think in the future you're going to see something like voice provide a walled garden structure for new users who know nothing about blockchain. But because voice will onboard the applications and provide some assurances on loss of funds, people have more reason to try those applications. So really, the social networking part of it is just the first step. I think you're going to see many more things built on it, and you're going to see the most amount of users flocking to the system because of those features, those unique features that it offers. With a Tron, because they haven't looked into this type of solution, Tron will, start to attract many crypto users because of their apps. But in my opinion, they'll have trouble appealing to the 99% who don't have time to go through the technical issues on using a DAPP today, right? So that's the difference, guys. And it's really important for you guys to keep that in mind. And I think that's why the high-level approach was taken by Block One during the event. So with that said, I want to just thank you guys for tuning in to my channel. And until next time, peace.